Now I'm very pleased to call to the floor. We are going to have our first session, Science and Rankings in the Age of Uncertainty. We will have to share this session the Vice President of IREG, Waldemar Siwinski. Now you'll take the floor. Go ahead.
Professor Costa, dear colleagues, the first to speak at this session was Michael Zgurowski, rector of Igor Sikorski University of Technology, KPI in Ukraine. The theme of his speech, challenges before higher education in Ukraine. He wanted to come to Warsaw. But this situation, not a simple situation, holds him in Kiev. Simply, he didn't receive the permission from the president of the country. But he prepared a message for us, and I will propose to show him. For those who don't know him, Professor Zgurowski was the youngest minister of education in the history of Ukraine. After the first Russian invasion on Ukraine in 2014, as the head of the supervisory board of the National Defense Committee of Ukraine, Ukroboronprom, he helped create the technology power of the Ukrainian army. When the Russian troops were approaching Kiev, he, with his student, was building street barricades and managed preparation for the defense of the university. He participated in the key IREG events in Berlin, in Warsaw, in London, and he was at our founders meeting when we decided in this university to create the IREG. Let us now listen to Professor Zgurowski.
Dear Mr. Chairman, dear conference participants, let me express my gratitude for the invitation to participation in the Jubilee IREG conference, for the high honor of representing the Higher Education School of Ukraine. I would also like to take my opportunity to express our deep gratitude to the Republic of Poland, other countries of the democratic world, for solidarity with Ukraine in resisting Russian aggression and for their great political, military, economic, and humanitarian support. University rankings take their place in higher education. Their importance cannot be overestimated. I'm proud to have made my modest contribution to the development of the IREG Observatory. I had the honor to be in Berlin in 2006 for the IREG conference, where the Berlin principles for ranking higher education institutions were adopted. I was at the University of Warsaw in 2008 when we decided to build the IREG Observatory, and I attended subsequent conferences in Warsaw, London, and other places. Time has shown that IREG serves a good cause by caring about the quality of higher education. IREG has also played an outstanding role in Ukraine's higher education system. Thanks to IREG, based on the Berlin principles, with the direct support of UNESCO CEPES, and with the help of experts from Europe, the National Universities Rating System Top 200 Ukraine was established in 2006. The basic principles of Top 200 Ukraine are openness, transparency, objectivity, and independence of university rankings, comprehensiveness and diversity of university activities, priority of European integration processes. For 16 years, it has been a system-forming factor in improving and strengthening of competitiveness of higher education in Ukraine in terms of transparency, democratization, university autonomy, student self-governance. In this context, analyzing the challenges before higher education in Ukraine, we must first mention the ability to continue this democratic situation to fulfill the main mission of the higher education system, to provide students with knowledge and skills, lead scientific research and develop innovations. And we see that even in conditions of war, Ukraine's higher education system demonstrates such ability. The educational process was resumed in distance form, demonstrate not only learning abilities, but also high social responsibility and patriotism. For example, from the first days of the war, KPI students joined the armed forces of Ukraine, the territorial defense forces, and volunteer organizations. Among those who died bravely defending the country were 7 Kyiv polytechnics. The second challenge for the higher education system of Ukraine is to consolidate in our educational technologies today the vast experience of distance learning that has been accumulated over the past 3 years, the period of the coronavirus pandemic and military action by the Russian Federation against Ukraine. Now, returning to the full-time form of education, we have to integrate a variety of distance technologies and modern thematic blocks in the class scheduler in the amount of approximately 30–40% of the total time of the educational process. We consider the strengthening of international project grant activities to be the third challenge today. Universities, our partners from the European Union, receive significantly more funds from international projects and grants of the EU, Horizon Europe, Erasmus+, NATO's program Science for Peace and Security, and others. We need to step up this activity to become more relevant and truly integrated into the European research area. There are many other challenges. They were included in the strategy for the development of higher education of Ukraine for the next 10 years, recently approved by the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. Dear colleagues, turning the pages of the 20-year history of the IREG Observatory of Academic Ranking and Excellence, we must express our deep gratitude to all those who started with the idea of launching this democratic method of improving the global higher education system. Finally, congratulations to IREG on its 20th anniversary, and wish to continue to play an outstanding role in the development of the global higher education system. Thank you very much. Glory to Ukraine.
Thank you. We started this conference with signaling new trends in the science and higher education. As we see, the message coming from Professor Zgurowski only confirms that these changes will be radical. It is natural, therefore, to ask to what extent these challenges will affect rankings, how rankings will mirror them, how will it affect the activity of IREG Observatory. And now I'd like to show you the small, brief history of IREG Observatory, because this is Jubilee session, Jubilee conference. Okay, it will be history of IREG in comparison on the map of IREG landscape. The first conference, IREG group, happened 20 years ago. It happened at the time when there was not yet a single international ranking in the world. However, it does not mean that there were no academic rankings. There were, and very popular. These were national rankings. As we see, the first famous US News Best Colleges 1983, Canadian Maclean's German Hochschul ranking, Indian, French L'Étudiant, British, Italian Census La Repubblica, in 2000, Polish Perspective University rankings, Spanish, Mexico's reform. It was the more than 15 rankings created in the previous century. And in this time, we meet in Warsaw, first time. It was during the first ranking conference in the world in 2002, in the mid of the June. Well-deserved congratulations to Jan Sadlak, then director of the UNESCO CIPES Institute in Bucharest, and Professor Andrzej Kozmiński, then director of the Kozmiński University, today the best private university in Poland and one of the best in Europe. They grasped the importance of the ranking phenomenon and understood its development potential. It was thanks to them that a conference of ranking experts happened in Warsaw in mid-June. Myself, I was among the participants of this conference, presenting Perspective University ranking. At the same event 20 years ago, Gero Federkeil was also present. From today's perspective, this historic meeting confirmed rankings as a new phenomenon in higher education with a potential to positively influence its quality. The next IREG meeting took place in Washington, D.C. in 2004. There where the group was joined by the authors of the two first global rankings from Shanghai and from London, the pioneering academic ranking of world universities 2003 and Times Higher Education Supplement 2004. This was together prepared by QS THE teams. The main topic of discussion in Washington was naturally the international rankings. You could say that IREG is a child of the national rankings, but then it grew up in the family of international rankings. The rapidly developing world of rankings needed guidance. This was done in Berlin, 2006, where the famous Berlin Principles on ranking of higher education institutions had been adopted. You see the group of the participants of this conference on the roof of the building, as I remember, Gero, the German Academy of Sciences. Yes, because the conference was hosted by German Academy, and this is picture taken by the roof. You see Berlin, I see Professor Ellen Hazelkorn, and many others also present in this room. Professor Zgurowski, our first speaker, also is present, and many others. Berlin Principles became a kind of ranking Bible, significantly contributing to the improvement in the quality of academic rankings. The strong resonance of the Berlin Principles made us realize that IREG and its activity are very much wanted. Hence, efforts were needed to strengthen the group of experts by giving it a more formal character. An ad hoc attempt was made at the IREG 2007 conference in Shanghai, where Jamie Merizotis, second from the right, came up with a proposal of creating ranking organization. But a group of participants from Asian countries, I remember, approached to the initiative with caution, as they feared American imperialism behind this idea. At the end of this conference in Shanghai, colleagues accepted my proposal that the Perspective Foundation be responsible for the process to establish a new ranking organization in the form of an NGO based in an EU country. And this is how we ended up at the University of Warsaw, exactly in the same auditorium. You can clearly see in the photo that we are meeting today in this hall. Oh, this is the second look for the audience. At the time, we discussed rankings during the special session at the first Poland International Education Conference organized by Perspective. I am sure IREG members and friends and participants of IREG conferences will find at these photos many familiar, maybe a bit younger faces. Alex Asher, as you can compare, Tom Parker, Professor Nyansai Liu, with colleagues, and Dr. Bianka Siwinska, Gero Federkeil, of course, with colleagues from Germany, Professor Zgurowski with Szolpan Kalanova from Kazakhstan. Professor Luty was the president of the Conference of Rectors of Academic Schools in Poland. We are now in the old library building, but the formal decision to establish an international organization called IREG Observatory on Academic Rankings and Excellence was taken 500 meters from here at the new library of the University of Warsaw, because the University of Warsaw has a great new library with a fantastic roof garden too. Of course, taking decision to establish an organization is one thing. Executing it, it's quite another. When you have members on 3 continents, it is a long and expensive endeavor. But we were lucky. It was Professor Andrzej Kozmiński, a man with excellent contacts in the European business circles, who secured a significant funding grant from the Polish branch of France Telecom, now Orange company. This seed money allowed us to finalize the next organizational steps. We drafted the IREG statutes during the IREG conference in Astana, in Kazakhstan, in June 2009. It was warm in Kazakhstan, but windy as usual. The formal registration of IREG Observatory and its statute took place in the notary's office in Brussels, Belgium, in October 2009, because we decided to register organization based on the good royal decree, the royal decree in Belgian royal decree from 1932 years. Once the organization was established in Belgium, we convened the first General Assembly. You know, this is very interesting picture, but everything was made first time. This is our first General Assembly meeting. You also see colleagues present here, or Professor Zgurowski also is present, as I remember. Okay, we have organization, and we should start our activities. The main form of the public existence of IREG Observatory were conferences, organized first every 2 years, then annually. A small map of countries when we organized IREG: Doha, Hasselt, Bologna, and the 2 last one was in the online form, of course, because it was impossible to go to Beijing or to the Jeddah. As you see, there have never been an IREG conference in Moscow or in any other Russian city, and we will probably not be there for many years. This is the picture from Hasselt, IREG initiatives. I have already mentioned the IREG Berlin principles. The adoption of this basic document allowed us to formulate the rules for the assessment of the quality of rankings included in the ranking audit manual rules, prepared with a great input of Gero Federkeil, our excellent colleague from Germany. Based on the manual, several rankings underwent a voluntary and independent audit. The first such audit were carried out in 2013. As a result, the IREG-approved label was awarded to QS, World University Rankings, in the group of international rankings, and Poland's Perspective University Rankings in the group of national rankings. We also established other IREG initiatives. You see the covers of our publication, of our rules. We are kind of the standard-setting company, because the guidelines for stakeholders of academic ranking, the inventory, seal of approval, this is basic documents for organize the ranking well, because every activity needs rules, and IREG is the organization setting rules for performance, for good practice in rankings well. We also established IREG Honorary medal. This is the medal given to our colleagues Isidro Aquillo, but the group of honored colleagues you can find on the IREG website. In the coming months, we will undertake new ranking initiatives adequate to the needs of the complicated world and to the new geopolitics of higher education. Doing so, we will certainly consider the outcomes of the discussion at this conference. Formally, IREG is an international not-profit organization registered in Brussels. But at its core, IREG is people, amazing people. I'd like to present three colleagues I work together during my long period activity as vice president. The first one, Jan Sadlak, the first president of IREG Observatory. As you can see, we differed in almost everything. He has a light jacket, mine is dark. His tie is dark, mine is light. We are even different when it comes to wine. He prefers white, my choice is red. But otherwise, we complemented each other perfectly. Luis Claudio Costa, the second president of IREG Observatory, rector and former minister of education of Brazil. I met Luis at the IREG conference in Taipei or in Shanghai many, many years ago. He was a speaker in my session. An eccentric and very professional, and also very professional Sottenerer, but an excellent colleague to work with. On the daily basis, I have been working with Kazimierz Bilanov, managing director of IREG Observatory. He is always in the right place, well prepared, and in the right form. Let me put it straight. I wish you all to have such a partner and associate. Thank you, Kazimierz. I would also thank the many colleagues present here and not present who I had the opportunity to meet and work with at IREG. Dear colleagues, not all our friends with whom we built IREG could be in Warsaw today. COVID is still around. The war in Ukraine is very real and very near us. But we live in a digital world and have great video greetings sent to us. The first, our online contributor to this session is Bob Morse, a true guru of rankings. Everything started with Bob Morse. He published the world's first professional ranking in 1983, the famous US News Best Colleges. Bob has been involved in the work of IREG from the very beginning, and from the start has been a member of the IREG Executive Committee, IREG Board. Let's hear him.
Hi, everybody at the IREG conference in Warsaw. I'm very, very sorry that I can't be there in person. I'm definitely there in spirit. You know, rankings are my first love, and IREG, I'm deeply committed to IREG and the international rankings. As many or all of you know, I work for US News since 1976. I was involved with the more or less the first rankings US News has done, the national rankings, the best colleges rankings, and I've been responsible for them since. It's definitely been a very long time. I got involved with the IREG. My first conference was in 2004. I was aware of when it was being founded and organized, and a couple of years before that. The first conference actually took place in DuPont Circle, which is like basically a mile or so from where I'm speaking now. It was right at the time when the Shanghai rankings had just come out, and there were a lot of things happening. And IREG has played a catalytic, as a catalyst in bringing rankers from around the world to participate, and that's been an important part of our engagement. I've actually learned probably way more from coming to the IREG conferences than people have learned from me, because I listen to what the other rankers are doing and how the people are responding to their rankings and their criticisms and their critiques and any new ideas that people have on an analysis. But nevertheless, we're here to celebrate IREG and its significant achievements as an organization of bringing rankers and higher educational institutions and other institutions bring people together. I think it's the world of rankings now is quite large, and some of the companies involved in it have gotten more sophisticated in their data collection and analysis. And there's, I guess, that's obviously one of the things that's happened over time. It's easier to collect information and have access to information, and it's harder to actually produce a successful ranking. I know the rankers who are there at the conference are all successful rankers, and we take our role seriously, and we try to engage the higher education community, and we try to do is collect the best data we can and be as responsible in our analysis as we can in the for the rankings. I know that's one of the common themes among the other rankers who are there. We may have different methodologies and work for different companies, but I think we all have the same goal of doing the best analysis that we can, be as careful as we can in the data collection, and be as responsible as we can in publishing the data, and be as responsive as possible when people ask questions. And I want to wish everybody there the greatest conference possible. I'm with you in spirit, and I will be with you in person next time. May IREG continue on and expand and become more influential. Good luck and good wishes. Thank you.
The Jiaotong University in Shanghai. Inc., together with Professor Nansai Liu, created the world's first international ranking, the famous Shanghai ranking, academic ranking of world universities. Inc. Cheng is the CEO and co-founder of Shanghai Ranking Consultants. Let's hear him.
Mr. Chairman, colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and greetings from Shanghai, China. I'm sorry for not being able to attend this important jubilee in person, but I'm grateful to the conference organizer for allowing me to contribute to your discussion and celebration via video. 20 years ago, a group of international ranking experts gathered in Warsaw and opened the international discussion about university rankings. A year later, in 2003, we published the first edition of Academic Ranking of World Universities in order to measure the gap between top Chinese universities and world-class universities. At that time, nobody could foresee that after 20 years, Chinese universities would make such tremendous improvements in both Shanghai ranking and in other global rankings. Nobody could foresee either that global university rankings have become a hot topic in global higher education community, and they had even huge impact on government policies and public opinions towards universities. We were seeing these changes and influence every year and every day. As a ranking producer, we will continue to think about how to fulfill our mission to produce a transparent and relevant ranking tool to observe universities worldwide. In 2009, the informal IREG became a formally registered entity, the IREG Observatory. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the founders of this organization for creating this valuable dialogue among rankers, universities, and researchers who are interested in different aspects on rankings. I would also like to thank the current president and management teams. Every year, IREG organized conferences and forums to facilitate the communication within the ranking community. The IREG also initiated a number of important projects, such as IREG Inventory of National Rankings and International Rankings, the audit of rankings, and so on. By doing these, IREG made significant contributions to the healthy development of rankings. On this very particular time, with global COVID pandemic and increasing tension between military powers, I do hope the IREG and its new leadership can maintain its activities and play even larger role in boosting international discussions on rankings and pushing rankings to better serve the public good. I thank you very much for your attention, and I wish all of you a very successful conference.
The last video speaker is Michelle Asha Cooper, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Higher Education Programs and Acting Assistant Secretary at U.S. Department of Education in the administration of President Biden. Michelle, for many years, led the Institute of Higher Education Policy in Washington, D.C., which hosted the IREG 2004 conference. She participated in many IREG events in Astana, in Warsaw, and in other cities, helping to create a global IREG brand. Let's hear her.
Hello, I'm Michelle Asha Cooper, and I'm the Acting Assistant Secretary for Post-Secondary Education at the U.S. Department of Education. I want to start by thanking the IREG Observatory for inviting me to provide some brief remarks this morning to welcome all of you to the IREG 22 Warsaw Conference. I was actively involved in the early days and development of the IREG Observatory, and I'm delighted to see many familiar names listed as still playing a part in the leadership of IREG, including Mr. Siwinski, Mr. Morris, Mr. Sodlik, and Mr. Billenow. I know my good friend and mentor, Tom Parker, is also participating in this year's conference. I'm sad that I can't be with you all today, but I continue to think about rankings a lot. And I'm working with my colleagues at the U.S. Department of Education to ensure that they acknowledge and reward factors like college quality and value, as well as a graduate's ability to achieve upward mobility. My colleagues and I at the U.S. Department of Education are committed to ensuring that as we move forward, we strive to make things better. We do not simply want to go back to the way things were, but we want to actually make things better for today's students. During this year's conference, I encourage you to focus on the real work of colleges that are leading the way by providing access, building pathways, and restructuring the curriculum to prepare students for good jobs and sustainable careers. But also the work that colleges and universities are doing in meeting the needs of their local economies and the workforce. I encourage you to think about how you are supporting these future students and others around the world. I encourage you to contemplate how to foster inclusion and academic excellence while responding to the emergent needs of our global community. Collectively, our efforts will lead to meaningful and lasting impacts for millions of today's students around the world. Thank you for everything that you do. I hope you enjoy this year's conference.
Sorry for small technical problems. Much better is to organize conferences in person. Summing up this short historical remembrance, I would like to emphasize that IREG has a room to grow. There is a need for platform when the creators of the rankings and their key audience, especially the academic world, can meet on a neutral ground. We are currently witnessing the emergence of the new ranking initiatives and their insistent promotion. In reaction, there is a growing criticism of ranking, often downright obsessive and absurd. That is why both sides need to talk to each other in the conditions of elementary comfort to all parties. This Philip Altbach opinion is very familiar to me. The main challenges in the world IREG ranking word is to understand the nuances, uses and misuses of the rankings. Thank you for your attention. I wish you good deliberation and also a good coffee break.
Thank you, Waldemar. It's very nice to hear the history of this important institution, and I would like to congratulate all of them that have been part of it, and I'm very grateful that to some extent I'm part of it.